Hi, this is Lauren and welcome to my craft room. I'm super excited that today is another Whimsy Stamps release day. I'm going to be sharing with you some of my new favorite Slimline dies that came out today. I made this sweet little spring scene with no stamping. It's all die cutting and coloring. I hope you enjoy this process video and you can check out the links to the brand new products down below in my description. The two die sets I'm using are the brand new Slimline Meadow die set and this Scalloped Pocket die set, and I am going to be die cutting out all of the images from the Meadow set and the butterflies from the Scalloped Pocket. Now to do my background, I'm going to be using my Distress Oxides. I'm going to be using Tumbled glass for my sky. So I am coloring this rectangular piece to be behind that open window on my Slimline die cut. And I'm just distressing it lightly and just adding a little bit of color in darker spots. I'm trying to not make it a perfect blend because I want it to look like a sky and there's natural colors and clouds in our skies. I'm adding some splatter. I'm using this beach ball color and I'm using sparkle silk to add some shimmer. Now for the top of my slimline, that's also going to be the sky, so I'm going to do the exact same thing. Distress with my tumbled glass color and then add in that splatter. I'm only going up to about where those bushes start on my frame here, as I only want my sky to be blue. So now that I am done distressing with the blue, I'm going to clean up my workstation here and start distressing with the green. So the bottom of my frame, I am using Mowed Lawn, and I'm going in again from the bottom and up to where my bushes start and meet the sky. I don't like having the most perfect blend. I like having texture. That's just my style of coloring. If you are distressing, obviously do what you love and what you like to see the most on your cards. But I like having a bit of texture when it comes to my skies and my grass, so it looks a little more natural, that there are shadows and lights in different parts of the background. I'm going to clean up my workstation to try and keep me from getting color everywhere. And before I peel off that mint tape, I am going to hide my blue sky with some scrap paper and then bring in this fresh sage silk to add some color to the grass. And then I'm going to cover the green part of my background so that way I can add that blue splatter just like I did with my background piece. I'm also adding in a little bit more of that tumbled glass because I covered too much with my mint tape and there was this bright white spot between the two. So now that all of my distressing is done and I'm finishing up with my splatter here, I can move on from my background and start doing the smaller pieces of my cards. First up, I am going to distress the tree. I am using brushed corduroy and just applying color all over my tree trunk and branches. I am going to use my distress sprayer to add some water and add texture to this die cut piece, and then I'm going to bring in my ground espresso to add in a little bit of depth around the tree and just use a darker brown. I'm going to go back and forth until I like what I have, and then I'm going to add more splatter because I just love my splatter. I have a brown silk here and I'm adding splatter to this tree trunk, and then I am going to set it aside to dry. Let me know in the comments what you think about splatter. I'm curious how many of you love putting splatter in your backgrounds or if you are a cleaner colorer than I am. So next I have my bushes. I'm using the Rustic Wilderness Green Distress Oxide for my bushes, and I'm going to color all three of these the same. And of course, I'm going to add more splatter. I'm using that same fresh sage silk and just adding a little bit of color and texture to those bushes. I'm going to put those aside to dry. The next die cut images I have picked out to color are these cute little rabbits. I'm going to just show you how I colored one. I'm taking a really light gray, which is blue gray 1, and I'm just going around the edge of my rabbit. I don't want to add a lot of color because it's a white rabbit, so I'm just adding ink along the edge, and then I'm also drawing in the line of his back foot. foot. I'm putting in pink into his ears, and then I'm using a colorless blender to soften that color up. It looks kind of funky right now, but it will soften up as the color dissipates into the paper, and as it starts to fade, it will, or as it starts to dry, it will lighten up the image a lot. For my mushrooms, I am starting with GB2 as the stock of these mushrooms and using EB3 as my mushroom tops here. I'm going to bring out EB6 just to add in some depth to the mushrooms to give them some shape, and then blending it back out with EB2 again, and then adding some little freckly spots here to have some texture on my mushroom. I'm also going to use EB2 to draw in a little bit more depth on those mushroom stalks and blending it back out again with GB2. Now I'm not getting super fancy with my coloring because, well, I don't think I'm a super fancy colorist, but these are super tiny images. I'm just adding color to give some depth and dimension and fun to these die cut images. I'm not striving for the perfect shading. I just want to create a nice little spring scene. So for my little toadstool mushrooms here, I'm using the same GB2 and EB2 for the stalks, but this time I am using dark coral, which is CR9 as my mushrooms to kind of give it that reddishy orange look. And then I'm bringing in my gel pen to add little white spots and polka dots to these mushrooms. The next image that I am going to color are my little flowers. So first are the stems and leaves. They look a little bit like little puffs of grass as well. And I am using AG3 to color those in. I'm just fully coloring them all in, no dimension, no shading. They're these tiny little die cuts. Next are my flowers. I put them on some mint tape just to help keep them in place. I am using GY3 to color in the centers of these flowers, and I'm using PV3 to color them purple. And for the more tulip shaped flowers, I am going to bring out rose red, which is MG4, to color those in. I definitely want to reproduce this slimline card again and have a lot more flowers. I think it would look so pretty having these little lines of flowers tucked in each of the layers of the grass. It'd be so pretty. And now I have a couple butterflies. I am coloring them in gold GY3 and then using ice gray 10, which is a really dark gray, just to add in some color into those butterflies. I tried to make them look a bit monarchy. I don't know if they look like monarch butterflies, but they're pretty cute. And for the little bushy parts of my trees, the leaves, I colored a couple in Rustic Wilderness and a couple in Mowed Lawn, and I am adding my splatter and setting those aside to dry. So now all of my images are colored. I am going to start assembling. I have a Slimline card base here cut out of some Kraft paper, and I am going to glue down that sky background using my little frame here as a guide. And then I am going to start layering where I want different images to go. So I'm starting with my tree. I originally tuck it behind that first little line of grass bushes there, but I wanted it higher, so I'm tucking it behind the top of my bushes, and it's going to overlap on the top of the frame. And I'm just adding in those little tufts of leaves, and then I'm going to use some mint tape to hold them in place. And then I'm just going to add some glue behind my bushes. I keep calling them bushes. I don't know, what do you call them? Like large things of leaves in a tree. My leaves, and I'm just adding glue behind the leaves to the tree branches and gluing those little leaf bundles together. This is really sad. Apparently I need to start learning more about the anatomy of trees. And once all that's in place, I'm going to glue that to the front of the top part of my slimline frame here, and then behind the bushes of my slimline frame here. I'm going to use a clear block just to have some pressure and make sure that that is gluing well in place. And now that I've embarrassed myself on not knowing the parts of a tree, apparently, we're going to move on. I'm going to layer in the bushes in between these really cute die cut pieces of grass and just kind of layer them in. I want the smallest one for this back to have, you know, depth that the smaller images are further away. I'm layering in the mushrooms and my flowers and just kind of getting an idea of where all these different little pieces are going to go. I definitely think die cutting a ton more mushrooms or 100 more flowers, okay, maybe not 100, but a bunch more flowers would look so pretty on this card. I place my butterflies in the sky, and I'm going to place my rabbits down here on the grass. And once I like pretty much where everything is placed, I'm going to start gluing things down. So I'm using my precision glue, and I apologize, I do a lot of gluing off camera. I'm so focused on making sure that things go back in the right spots. I sometimes forget that I'm filming and need to actually do the things under the camera. So I am gluing the bush and my flowers, and I'm just going through and, you know, putting everything back after I pulled them out and layering everything on my card. Let me know in the comments if you have any advice on how you like to lay out your cards before you glue everything down. Are you a glue it down and just see where it goes, or do you do a dry run and place everything down and then glue on your images? I am definitely, as you could tell, I like having an idea where everything's going to go. Even if I end up moving something to a different spot as I'm gluing, I am just very type A, and I like having, you know, a set plan of what I'm doing. I tend to wing it sometimes, and then it doesn't turn out how I want, and so I like having a little bit of an idea of where things are going, as I can be a perfectionist. So now that I am almost done gluing everything down, I just think it's so fun. I love these mushrooms and these little bunnies and flowers, and I love the addition of the butterflies from that other Slimline die set. I just think it makes a really sweet scene. So now that I am happy with everything, I am going to glue on a bunch of foam. I'm definitely not going to show you me glowing on foam, but I'm just using scrap fun foam from different projects that I've used to create shaker cards and everything else. I just have a bunch of extra pieces. So I glued them down using my wet glue, and now I'm applying wet glue to the other side of the foam so I can layer it onto my card base. So I like using wet glue because it gives me a little bit of wiggle room to make sure it is centered, and I press everything on and it's all done. I think this card is so fun and bright and sweet and perfect for spring. I hope you check out the brand new products from Whimsy Stamps. All the links are down below in my description. Thank you so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe, and have a great day.